welcome to the UnLearn show. All of the five co-hosts, we are excited today because we are actually flipping the table on one of the co-hosts. And guess who's up? Katie, you are up today. You're the guest. You're going to talk with us a little bit about breaking your bad habits and having a purpose and a plan. So welcome to your own show.
Hey, thanks. Woo! I'm
Katie,
so amazing.
So you probably know everybody here pretty well. We're excited to have you speak.
No, I don't.
With you. And the typical flow is we like to talk about where you are in the present and then have you kind of step back into the past, talk a little bit about, kind of how you've gotten through this journey and then what the future looks like. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to the other co-hosts. I think Chantel probably looks like she's just raring to just get started on this.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick it off right away. And Katie, thank you for being a guest.
Katie! Oh, I love you so much. You were one of my first friends on LinkedIn. It was crazy. Did you know that?
Yay! You were one of my first friends.
Yay!
No, I didn't know, but I knew you were one of mine. So
Sisterhood. Okay, so I know a little bit about you, obviously, because we connected a few months ago. But can you share with everybody else who you are, who Katie Wallace is, your background, and your why?
Yes, I can. Oh gosh, this is terrifying. I do not like this. I really hate talking about myself. Like I get really bored with myself really easily just because I know me. So it's like, tell me about you.
You're brilliant. We love you.
So I don't even. Okay, so I don't really know what to say here. I will say, just kind of like my past, a couple of past struggles have been like obviously with drug and alcohol addiction, with mental health, and then just that essentially. And then also, from there, like here to the present, I have like started the Justice League of Sustainability, and we're going to save the planet. So, there's that. I don't know. What do you want to know? What do you want from me?
So what drove your passion for your Huck Sustainables, your sustainable, like what drove you for that?
So I've always been interested in sustainability and just kind of like the micro and macro effects that we have on the environment around us. And it was solidified by a trip to the Philippines a couple years ago when I was visiting just family that I still have in the Philippines. And they are the most amazing humans in the entire world. And they really opened my eyes when I thought they were already open. And it made me see how, even though I already had an emphasis and I was focused on sustainability and trying to join all these noble causes to clean up the ocean and make sure to recycle and do all that, that I really wasn't having an impact, and that I needed to look at every single action that I took. One thing that really hit me was that their electricity would go out in the barrios pretty regularly, and when the electricity went out, they wouldn't have access to their electric pumps that pump the water. So they wouldn't have water if the electricity goes down, and it just kind of seemed like the government really doesn't care about that. It's whatever for them, And so that really bothered me. And I sort of made it my mission to get back and help build the Filipino community up by helping them build a business and showing them how, which would be, it's going to be a renewable energy business that I want them to kind of take on. So that's sort of like why I do everything that I do. So.
That's beautiful. It sounds like a really cool trip and a really insightful culture change, right? It's definitely something that we could use more of and to learn more of.
Yeah, it it messed me up in a good way, in a really good way. It like shook me. I don't really know how else to say that, but yeah, it shook me awake. All right. Don't know what's happening now.
So Katie, I'll ask a question for you, because you referenced a little bit about your prior challenges in your life, and for those of us that know you, we know a little bit about that. But can you share, that breaking point, or like the bottom? Like, what did it look like for you, when you were there? Now that you reflect back upon it, and then what did you do to get yourself past that kind of rock bottom point?
Are we talking about with addiction essentially, or like my mental health, or because I've been through a lot, so I don't know which one to discuss.
Yeah, whichever one you feel comfortable sharing with us. If there's one, if there's two, whichever one you'd like to share.
You can go with. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can go with that because they're all correlated, and it was all correlated with my mental health, and it was something that I didn't realize until much later, that like everything that was going on in my life was a direct result of just of being depressed. And basically my bottom looked like I don't really talk about this a lot, because my bottom essentially was getting into legal trouble, thank God, because I was at a point where I was ready to die. And like, seriously, like everything that I was doing, the chemicals that I was mixing in my body, I was ready to die, and I was just waiting for anything to happen. I remember like just being at like stoplights and thinking like, should I just ram my car into this tree right now? Or just like really not bizarre, but I just was not in a good state of mind. Right. And so there was just sort of some divine intervention, and I ended up getting arrested. And basically, I'm not going to give you the whole spill, but it came down to you need to get help or you are going to go to prison. And obviously, I was really young. I was 19, and I mean, I don't do prison. Like I mean, not that anybody wants to, but that kind of, it was this moment. Like I remember just sort of like, it felt like I was like looking down on my body when like that moment when my lawyer was like, this is what they're offering you. This is all you have. And I just sort of like was looking down, and I could just picture my life. And I saw for like a minute, like hope that like, maybe, like just maybe, like I could, dang, I haven't talked about this in a long time. But it was cool, because I thought for just a second that like maybe I would be okay, and that maybe I could live to see another day, because when you're like living and you're wanting to die for so long, like you're just like ready for it, but then it's like you have something to live for, just like a little something. And that was really cool. So that was sort of like my like bottom, but then being able to like find that hope again, and being able to just and hang on to that, right? So I had this like tiny bit of hope, and I just held on to that for like year after year after year. And then now my life is just so great and grand and wonderful. Not that it was that easy, but yeah, that's what it looked like. I almost just cried. What the heck? Oh my God.
I knew it would be you that would get us to cry. I knew it would be you.
I gotta tell you right now, if it was possible, I think we all love you just so much more for that moment right there. I know I do. Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, that was brutal. Okay.
Not just for you.
Yeah, no, I think all of us I don't even know where to go from here.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Sorry for
asking
questions, guys, but Katie, I know what it's like to have nothing and to not know what tomorrow's going to bring, right? What was your string of hope? What was that piece of hope that kept you holding on and trying for a better you, a better tomorrow?
It honestly had nothing to do with me. I just was fortunate enough to find the right people at the right time who were like, hey, I believe that you're going to be okay. And I know you don't believe it right now, but I'm telling you, if you just hang on for just a little bit longer, it's going to be okay. And I think I'm crying because I haven't thought about this in a long time. Because I mean, this has been what, 10 years now. So it's not something that I talk about often. So it's like really intense for me to like remember like being back in that place. And yeah. So I think it was just that people were telling me like, just trust me. Do you trust me that like, I know that you're going to be okay? And I just like put my trust in them. And then like each day it got a little bit better. You know, some days it was still really shitty, but they just sort of like, but they had my back, you know, and kind of like pulled me along when like I didn't want to, you know, and it just sort of like snowballed from there.
Beautiful. It's good to have a good, sturdy support system.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously you're saying that your life is great now, which is fantastic. But obviously I'm sure you have ups and downs. How do you kind of navigate that, the times where you kind of, you know, I don't know, maybe drop back down, have a little bit of some of the same feeling?
I think because I got really obsessed with getting to the bottom of things and looking at things objectively and knowing the truth about myself. So that way, when situations did arise, like, so for me personally, like, I know I can't drink and I know I can't do like certain things just because it throws me off balance. And if I'm already struggling with depression and things like that, then it's not a good scene. And so I think knowing the truth about myself and being able to give myself enough time and enough space to find my triggers, so that way when I get in an unsafe place or unsafe like space in my head, I can kind of look at it objectively and know that like, okay, this is what it is. This is why it's affecting you. Like, feel it, and then you can let it go. So I think that was kind of a roundabout answer, but yeah, just being able to look at things objectively and also of course having a strong support system.
Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned before, I know in one of your videos that you figured out, and I thought this was really brilliant when you said it then, and you just mentioned it again, and I think it's worth really highlighting to know your triggers and to know those things that for you bring you, you know, emphasize bad feelings or anything like that. So when you first said that in the first or in the video, I thought that was a really key point for people to kind of realize that maybe that's, you know, something that they need to really take a look at within themselves and know their truth and know their triggers, because that would help a lot of people, I think.
Absolutely. Well, because like if you look throughout your life and you'll see these patterns that emerge, and you're like, why does this keep happening? This is so crazy. I don't understand why. And it's just that, like, you know, for me, I wasn't taking the time to like dive into those things. I just knew that it was uncomfortable and I didn't want to look at it, and I just wanted to be crazy and I didn't want to deal with it. But then once I finally like faced it head on, and you can trace that stuff back, and you can trace it almost back to the moment that it happened, where you picked up this thing and it became your truth, even though it wasn't the truth, but you picked it up and you carried it with you for so long. And so if you can untwine those things from your life, it helps a lot. Like my trigger, I think I've talked about it. My biggest one is feeling out of control. And so this thing will start to have, like, you know, it could be like, I feel out of control at work, and like my kid doesn't want to listen to me, and she's sassy, and like everyone hates me basically. And that doesn't set me off. But if I look in the dishes and you haven't done the dish, I swear to God, like I'm going to lose it. Like, you know, I'm just going to freak out. But it's because it reminds me of how not in control I am. You know, it has nothing to do with the dishes. It just has to do with the fact that I feel out of control. And that's just a reminder of me being out of control, you know? So, yeah.
As the great Mr. Miyagi once said, accept. Right? You just have to learn to accept that you're not in control. It's just not even a thing that can be grasped. So I'm curious what it is that you're working on right now then. What are you learning?
Oh man, I am unlearning a lot. I think the biggest thing for me is that because I've been doing so much work on myself, quote unquote, that it's hard for me to put myself in uncomfortable situations. So I have to actively seek out uncomfortable situations to grow. And I've been doing that since like January 1st. Like if there's a conversation that I want to have, I have it. I mean, obviously not if it's like, you know, not good for the other person. I don't do that. But it's like, you know, if it's my leaders, if it's with my mom, if it's with my partner, if it's with my kid, or whatever it looks like, I do those things so that way I can continue to grow. Because if I stop growing for too long, it's so easy for me to fall back into that just like cycle of crap. And so I'm unlearning. I think the biggest things that I'm unlearning now are just certain truths that society puts out that I've always accepted. And now I'm just really trying to like challenge those and really look at like, why do things have to be this way? Is it because it's been done this way for a long time? And can it be done differently? I think those are probably the biggest things.
Yeah, Katie, that's, you know, it's interesting because you talk a lot about how you're doing it for yourself. So if you had to give one piece of advice to someone else that's out there, and you know, your experiences, no one else is going to have the same as yours, but what's that one piece of advice that you give to somebody else to keep them moving forward in the right direction?
Oh, the biggest piece of advice, I think, don't be afraid to ask for help, I think is the biggest thing. You know, everybody tries to take on things and they want to do everything on their own, and they don't want to be seen like they're weak or this or that. And I think that's what almost killed me, is like, because I didn't want anyone to think that I was like defective or that I needed help. And so just don't do it alone. Whatever it is that you're facing, like tell somebody, like let them in on what your truth is. And it'll just make the journey a lot lighter for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do any of the other co-hosts have any last parting comments or questions? Otherwise, we're going to let Katie have the opportunity to ask if she has anything for us as well.
Just hugs. That's all.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Katie, we wanted to once again, as a absolutely kindred spirit, a friend, and a co-host on the show, we wanted to say thank you for kind of bearing your soul to us for a minute. And if we put you in a uncomfortable situation, that was not the intention, but I think that you sharing that with us and the community, you're gonna impact somebody. I mean, you've impacted all five of us, and I'm sure yourself today. So thank you for sharing your UnLearn story with us today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. It wasn't uncomfortable. I mean, it was uncomfortable, but like in a good way.